Welcome, everyone. Today I'm joined by Rick DellaRatta. He's long known as one of the world's finest jazz pianists. He also began to receive major recognition as a composer when his symphonic piece, Permutata, was recorded by the London Symphony Orchestra at the Beatles' famed Abbey Road studios in 1999. Then he was recognized as a unique and important vocalist in 2004 when he was included in a definitive listing of the greatest jazz singers of all time in Scott Yanow's book, Jazz Singers. Through his lifelong endeavor to help advance people to their highest potential through the understanding of jazz, as well as spreading peace worldwide through his Jazz for Peace World Tour, Rick DellaRatta is considered to be an innovator and a visionary, a designation that became known by many when he was included by the Foundation Center in their list of the top musician philanthropists of our time, along with Bono, Elton John, Gabriel, and Sting. Welcome, Rick. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure, Rihanna. Like I said, glad to be with you.
Yeah, so we're on take two. Our first attempt didn't work out, but I was curious. So, like last time, you asked me what kind of music I like, and I said basically everything but death metal and gangster rap. And then tell us what you told me about why you think I might not like gangster rap.
I was hoping you were going to do that because we talked about a lot of stuff, and I know you could pull from any of that you liked. Um, and I remembered how surprised you were when I told you. For musicians in the music industry, people kind of, it's second. We all know this fact, but people are so shocked. And of course, most people aren't in the music industry, so most people are shocked when they hear this. But it just goes to show what I was talking about with you earlier, which was at a low level of human consciousness, things can get really dark and people can think really bad thoughts. And if you look at history, you see a lot of killing and brutality, all at a very low level of human consciousness, when people get really greedy with money and things like that. And so what happened in the music industry, one of numerous horrible, the music industry is not your kindest, it's not the best industry out there. It's pretty bad, actually. But the music and the musicians are really, can be really good. So, but what happened in this instance was they had been under suspicion by anyone who has ever done business in the music industry. I mean, it's a very suspect industry to begin with. I mean, a lot of people wonder. There were a lot of conspiracy theories, maybe not proven, but people were not closing the window on them either. I mean, they were very like, I can't believe someone could do this, but it seems like it's actually true. And then this guy, Ice Cube, there's a couple rappers named Ice. I think once was Ice T or Ice. This one's Ice Baby's another one. This guy was called Ice Cube, and he's a pretty cool guy. He was in a couple of movies and stuff, and he's pretty straightforward type of guy. Actually, if you ever get to check him out. And he just straightforwardly told Bill Mayer on a podcast, because Bill Mayer is kind of well known nationally. I guess he had that national syndicated show. A lot of people are watching this thing, and he just nonchalantly just said, "Hey, yeah, we had problems because he would, put out a record of, hopefully good juju and things that he wanted to do and all that, and the label would just kind of brush it to the side." And it became like known, either they were studying it or whatever, but whoever came up with the most violent thing on their release, the label would take that and promote it as a single. And the more violent, the better. In other words, whoever's gonna get the most people to do things that would get them in jail wins. That's what they were kind of noticing. Like, what is going on here? That guy, they didn't promote anything from mine. Mine was issued as an EP, all of my great messages. And this guy's, telling people that, the worst thing that they could probably do for their future, and they're promoting the living daylights out of it. So they did some research and they looked, who are these guys that own this label? Well, it turned out they own other things. One thing that they own, actually one of their biggest thing that they own, is private prisons. And so they realized that the major labels that were in the rap industry were the owners of the private prisons, which I had read that in private, because I used to follow financial things back in the early 2000s, and I'd read something about privatized prisons, and I thought that's kind of crazy. Like that sounds like a what do they call that? When they would say it's I forget the term, but like you're not supposed to be both you know what I mean, the one guy and the other guy. You know what I'm saying? You're not
Oh,
supposed to be like basically it's a conflict of interest.
yeah,
So sorry to delay you. That's the term.
yeah,
So I was like, that seems like a conflict of interest because you're telling me that a private person can own that means the more money that they make is better for him. And couldn't that be aren't we supposed to be not getting people arrested? Aren't we supposed to not getting people incarcerated? You know what I mean?
right.
And it seemed like a conflict of interest when I first heard about it. Well, talk about a conflict of interest on steroids. Here they are now. Oh, let's own a music label and reward only those who send messages out that are going to be good for our private prison business.
Yeah,
So guess what? So guess what happened, Rihanna? These rappers were like, they're not stupid, but they're also like don't want to starve to death either. So somebody's going to do it if you don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody like that, this guy wants a really horrible message, but he's going to make you money and promote you and you're going to have, you're going to be able to pay your bills maybe rather than putting out something that you want and they don't even promote it. So this is talk about completely backwards. So now the music industry is in that area is completely backwards. They're promoting these things. I'm watching them on, MTV or whatever. And I'm like, I want nothing to do with, why would I want anything to do with what they're doing now? And that was far away from when it started, like I told you before, Grandmaster Flash and some people like that. I was like, okay, this could have legs. This could be something. These guys are an honest message by some people, you know what I mean? With some people with some street credentials and have lived the life and they're going to talk about it. And hey, this could all be good. Boy, did it take a dark turn. So that's what happened, and that's why you don't like rap music, because it's putting people in jail. Now, right this second, I don't know, because like I said, the word is getting out. But listen, that whole thing, that whole industry's in trouble. Believe me. I mean, right down the street here is the courtroom where, a lot of these guys, Puff Daddy, all that crazy stuff has been going on with the trials and all that.
wow, wow. Yeah, it's like the label. It's diabolical. Like we're only going to promote music and because people look at musicians and rappers and artists and athletes of all kinds, and they idolize them and they want to emulate their behavior. And so if the artist is being pushed to put out words and music, I mean, it's a state of hypnosis. When you're listening to music, you can go into a state of hypnosis. And so if their idol is now talking about going out and killing, like not talking about their life story anymore and what their experience was, but like talking about ridiculous, over the top, treating people as subhuman, and it motivates people to emulate that behavior, and then they might end up in prison. So the label is getting profit on two ends, and it's diabolical, and
It's turning everything upside down, completely upside down, because people like me can't participate at all in that. Because why did I do all of this work as a musician now to just sell it all away so that I can get a paycheck to get people incarcerated?
right.
And dumb down my music too for it too, because that stuff is really dumb. In fact, what's really strange about that music is the dumber it is, the louder it gets. They play it. So you'll hear some car going by with really loud, really super loud, you know what I mean? And it's, again, a ridiculous message being sent, to help a corporation, to
Yeah,
benefit no one except a corporation.
yeah. And then the consumers of the music actually might think that they're feeling empowered, but really they're being victimized. And the artist doesn't even get to put out the music that they actually want to put out.
They don't. You're absolutely right. Which brings us to, what I've been saying about the possibility of a necessity to raise human consciousness, because this behavior looks a lot more ridiculous the higher level of human consciousness that you embrace, and a lot more impossible for you to pay attention, to be a part of it, participate in it, all that stuff at a higher level of human consciousness. And we may have to embrace a higher level of human, in other words, push may be coming to shove in a lot of areas, just a lot of things that we're involved with, in terms of wars, possibly the climate. I mean, listen, I'm not a climate expert, but we are burning, I've double checked this, 103 million barrels of oil per day as a species on this planet. That's what the Earth is consuming per day. That's just oil. That's not plastics. That's not, do you know what I mean? I mean, there were 8,000 plastic bottles being manufactured per second at a time when they did a survey on it years ago, like 10 years ago, 8,000 per second. And very little of those plastic bottles is biodegradable. So, we're supposed to believe that there's no consequences for that. Look, I mean, I can't close the window on that. There's no, you know what I mean? That we're not doing something that could have serious consequences. I don't know what. But my point is, it's a low level of human consciousness to think that there's no consequences for, extreme activity.
Well, yeah, and I think we saw when everybody was staying home in 2020 that the environments around changed. And you can tell when there's a lot of human activity, there's trash everywhere. Like, for one thing, even if that was the only thing, we don't want to live in a bunch of trash. But can you give us some tangible examples of what you mean by higher levels of human consciousness? Like, what does that look like in human behavior and emotional expression, and what people are creating in the world?
Well, if you look at history, there has been a lot of higher level of human consciousness behavior that's actually been punished, because it didn't fit in with lower level of consciousness human behavior norms, or it didn't fit in for something that was in place. Like, to be honest with you, right down the street here, the Brooklyn Bridge, that idea was a pretty darn good, I mean, it was not a low level human consciousness idea. Let's put a bridge over here. But if you ever see the story of that, I mean, the guy was apparently murdered. The person, well, his wife was, I mean, family member after family member was disappeared. All kinds of crazy things happened because there was a ferry, like a little boat, short ferry being run by the mafia that, again, did not want, to be displaced financially. And after years and years and years, and after it took years and years and years for everybody to figure it out. But again, this is a fractal. If you look at not Nostradamus, but Galileo, apparently was imprisoned for his phenomenal idea of the universe, many of which has now been proven true, but, they threw him in jail. Socrates, apparently got murdered. A lot of these people, it's like the punishment doesn't fit the crime, especially when there is no crime at all, except an incredible idea to benefit mankind. And that brings us to artists. And, I think I told you last time that, you might be able, we think when we go to MoMA or, to, the Museum of Modern Art, and we see these paintings and all, that we're paying homage to these artists. Well, let me just tell you something. First of all, good luck finding one that's alive. I mean, you might not find any that are alive. So let's just say they're pretty much all dead that you're looking at. And second of all, what you're seeing is a derivative or hearing with musicians, because you read this life of these great musicians, these great artists, and across the board. I mean, you might find one somewhere that was known during his lifetime by more than 1% of the human population. I haven't, so I'm telling you, it's across the board. Nobody really knows who they are during their lifetime. And if they're lucky, they get recognized hundreds of years later. Well, let me tell you something. They didn't even know the time we're in now to write music or compose music or paint something. Their expression was for that time period that they were in. So it's a low level of human consciousness activity to marginalize or completely not know who they are, or, have Salieri-esque behavior where we don't know who the people are on purpose. I don't know if you've ever heard of Salieri, but if you ever watched the movie Amadeus, and that's why I can say Salieri, because a lot of people have seen the movie Amadeus. Have you heard of it, Mozart?
I'm pretty sure, yeah, but it's been a while.
Yeah, well-known movie about Mozart. Not all, I mean, not everyone's heard of every well-known movie, but just so you know, that movie got a lot of attention, won a lot of awards. It was about Mozart, and people didn't really know that he was, conspired against by this other artist, Salieri, who was, deeply jealous and envious of Mozart's talent and wanted to make sure nobody ever found out who he was. You know what I mean? Because he was so envious and jealous. Again, this is it's low level human consciousness behavior, but it's happens all the time. I mean, if what we just talked about with the rap has been happening just got uncovered, I think, in the last year. That crazy thing just got uncovered. So that's been happening so recently, you can imagine that this behavior, low level human consciousness has, been going on, I guess, since long as I can remember. But we need to raise our level of human consciousness collectively, possibly, or else. So say people that are smarter than me. I mean, I follow some of these people who have made predictions, psychic medium type of people that have said things. And one guy, Edgar Casey, whose museum I went to once when I played in Virginia Beach, where apparently he was from and now has a museum, actually gave the year to his predictions. And a bunch of them have been accurate. And his prediction for 2027 and beyond is that a nation will have to have a spiritual awakening. I don't have the exact quote. I might be able to find it while we're talking, but something similar to that. I can actually tell you let me see if I can probably find that pretty easily.
Yeah. So like exploitation, greed, preventing amazing ideas from being enjoyed by humanity for personal gain. Those would be low levels of human consciousness.
Well, a nation's future rests on the spiritual awakening of its people. That's him talking about America in 2027, only a year from right now. And that's him. I don't know what year that was, but some of these predictions were made in the early 1900s. He was born in the 1800s. So
wow.
this could have been made at least 100 years before now, 100 years ago. But my point is, he went into a trance and people wrote down what he said when he went in the trance, these trances. And so much of it has become accurate that it's kind of, he's not a guy you want to discount, because so much of what he said has been incredibly accurate. But a nation's future resting on the spiritual awakening of its people makes sense to me. And he also says some good things about the United States if we do have a spiritual awakening, and that is that we could be a leader, one of the leaders of the world going forward on that trajectory. You know what I mean? Because we may be one of the casualties of the world going forward if we go in this other nuclear way and, some of the stuff that's going on now. But here's the other thing. If you look at history, you'll see that conquerors have been, this is the way they've been doing it for hundreds of
Yeah.
years. You know, the Roman Empire with the swords and killing, this is the way that people manifest destiny here with the Indians. I was honored to play for Indians and to help Indian tribes. I was just so honored. I told them they were heroes to me. And that was just, I didn't know their whole story, but I was just so honored to work with them through Jazz for Peace. But again, where does Jazz for Peace come from? Well, it comes from my music at a shooting me up into a higher level of human consciousness because of that story I told you about the human consciousness expert that I had
Mhm.
on my podcast.
Yeah. And so like the frequency of the sound is at a higher uh, wavelength or
Well, yeah, like I said, I had a human consciousness expert on my podcast, and I was as curious as anybody. I said, this is amazing. What is this thing? Is this for real? Tell me about it. And she started doing all of the emotions and the number, the human consciousness level from 20, 40, 8, 60, 80, up to she's up to 200. And I'm like, wow, those are all pretty, not so great things. She says, yeah, but that's where we're spending 90% of our time in that stuff. I said, wow, well, what's above that? And she started these other. I says, oh, well, those are kind of, you mean it gets better as we get high? She said, yes, it gets better as you get higher. And we're supposed to be 90% of our time. We have the potential, 90% of our potential could be from 400 and above. And that's where we should go as a species. We should be 400 and above. And she's only in the 200s, and it's not bad what she's saying, 250, 270, 280, So then she gets up in the 300s, and I said, listen, I'm the founder of Jazz for Peace, and I do this because I believe in my heart. So, I don't know, but I could be on the wrong path now. Would you, I'm going to play, if I play something, would you be able to rate it right on the live to people? And she said, yes, I would, because she's a human consciousness expert. I said, all right. Well, and I just played. And after I was done, I said, it was the moment of truth. I said, okay, what is it? Because, I got to go with what she says. She's the expert. She could say 40. I don't know what she's going to tell me,
right, right.
She said 540. 540, she said, And we're supposed to be 400 and above. So I'm like, wow, that's kind of, we're in there. I said, that's amazing. She said, yes, it's very close to one of my favorite human emotions, consciousness emotions of all. I said, what's that? She said, world peace, which is 600. So like I told you last time, that was like, oh my God, I'm Jazz for Peace. So this is what I've been doing. I've been trying to get people to 540 with my music that she just said is at a 540 human conscious level so that we could get from there to peace, Jazz for Peace, to 600, which is peace.
Yeah.
So I have been on the right track. As far as I was on the right track after all. Because you
Yeah.
don't know, because to be honest with you, I mean, if you end up in jail, that guy who, this Galileo, if you end up behind bars, you got to wonder, what the heck am I doing this for if it's going to end me up there,
Well,
So I'm wondering, what?
so many times we hear about the suffering artist, or like most of those artists you talked about and named, their lives were not abundant. They weren't wealthy. They weren't having great relationships. They were persecuted, and then we're celebrating their work hundreds of years later. It's just a little bit ridiculous. Like, why can't our artists now thrive and be celebrated without people like? So I have my music producer. I went to record. I sing, and I went to record one of my songs, and he
Okay.
told me this whole story about some of his artists that have had handlers that have been had to adopt this whole like belief ritual kind of system. And if they didn't, they would be blacklisted and they would lose everything that they got. And so there are artists, and he, as a producer, decided, they offered it to him. He was nominated for Grammys, and he was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then so he lost most of his clients because they get into a little club and then they black label people or blacklist them. And he had an artist that was fully in it. It was a very famous artist. And he told him like how terrible it was and how that some of his songs were about that very thing. And that once you're in, you really can't get out. And like, they'll take young artists that are new and they'll give them a lot of drugs, and then they'll take embarrassing pictures of them. And then if the artist doesn't do what
Right.
they say, then they'll threaten to publish the pictures. And so like just controlling people. So why are we controlling artists and instead of for personal greed and gain? Like why are we as a species allowing that to continue to go on? We're consuming music that is commercialized and sexualized, not in a true sexual way, but more like an exploitive way. So what are we doing?
You have opened a can of worms that I I have no, I am remiss to close. I mean, I wouldn't close that. I mean, what you've said is it's the kind of thing that people like me can't really say because I'm the art, I'm too close to it. But what you've said is actually what goes on. So that person who talked to you, I'd love to talk to him someday because I'm telling you that guy knows what's going on because that's what's been going on. It's crazy. And yes, so first of all, let's look at what's going on. The public plays a point in this by ignorance. They either play ignorance or they enable it to happen by their ignorance. So the public, there's no, you know what the problem is? There's no consequence. The public kind of has been going along with it. They've been going along with whoever they present them to and whatever God only knows that person had to go through to get presented by that person to them. And it's kind of an enabling sort of scenario. It's a very strange, dichotomy. But at the same time, there's no punishment. There's nothing like those people can commit these crimes and go unpunished. And they know it. They know there's nobody going to punish them for doing that. But here's the other problem. They also get addicted to that low level human conscious behavior. So that becomes their prison because they get addicted to it like they're addicts. They're like, they're literally vampires. Okay.
Exactly.
Because if you do that enough times, you start to like look at the world like a vampire and you're looking for that flesh, that 18-year-old's new star that's just come, you're looking for it and it's a consumption sort of thing. They're the consumer of the souls of these people. So yeah, there almost is no real music industry. I mean, I could prove it in 2 seconds, and I could prove it to you right now. I don't know if anyone will watch this thing and take me up on what I'm saying, but there is a link. It's called jazzforpeace.org/unprecedented.pdf. That's what it says. And I might change it to, I might add one just to make it easier, jazzforpeace.org/7.pdf. But right now, the link is jazzforpeace.org, our website, /unprecedented.pdf. Why? Because it lists 7, not 1, not 3, 7 unprecedented achievements, one of them being the music. 7 unprecedented achievements in all. And you got a world that they don't know who you are, a public that doesn't know what we've done for men, for the most part. Like I said, there are people, I get letters all day and, we could talk about all the people, but I'm talking about 1% of the like I'm saying this, the artists, during their lifetime, they don't know about any of those 7 unprecedented achievements. And there's no penalty for, someone to just keep them in the dark. Someone who might know. There's no penalty for someone who's in music, let's say, to I don't know if they don't, no one knows what would happen because no one's ever taken that paper and gone up to one of them and said, what about this?
Do you know
What would they say?
off the top of your head what's on there? The seventh.
I will tell you, if anyone who watches this can go and fact check it, believe me, go right ahead. I'm gonna go to it right now. Okay, so here it is. Okay, jazzforpeace.org/ okay, let's see if I can get this. Oh, darn it. All right. I hope it, all right. So now it's going to come up. So here they are. All right. So Jazz for Peace is a philanthropic, world-class arts and cultural organization that cares about what people really want, a future of hope, prosperity, and a chance to finally take funding for world peace from 0%, where it is now, all the way to 1% during the current year-long celebration of the 25th anniversary of Jazz for Peace and our concert at the United Nations and our 7 unprecedented achievements that started on the morning of 9/11 and features the following unprecedented achievements below. So even what I told you right now would shock the daylights of your average Joe walking across the street from Dunkin' Donuts to their job with their donut and coffee, at 9 o'clock to punch in. They're not going to, they'd be like, what? What? A future of hope, prosperity, of course. Funding for world peace from 0 to 1. Well, funding for war is at 100. Funding for peace is at 0. That's dystopian. That's just dystopian. I mean, none of us are dumb enough to buy into that, to really believe that the world should be that way. Nobody, even if you have a teensy little bit of brain cell left in you, you know that war could be funded a little less. Peace should never be funded at 0. What kind of a world are you going to have with that? So, yes, we want to bring world peace from 0% to 1% over this year-long celebration. So the first thing you have to do is know about our celebration and why we're celebrating it, to know why why we have the right to want to take peace from 0 to 1. Now, you might not think that's a lot, but 1% world peace is actually $10 billion because the amount of money we're spending on war, 1% of that would be $10 billion to people for peaceful related activities, of which we have unprecedented achievements for accomplishing. And I'm naming them. So these are things that no one's ever done that I know of. I mean, somebody please tell me if you know if somebody did it. But one of the first thing is the poem written by Rick DellaRatta, myself, I 9/11, witnessing those tragic events from a rooftop less than a quarter of a mile away from ground zero, and which he has lived up to the words for the past 25 years. So I'm the only one, because I've been waiting 25 years for has anyone ever. I happen to be watching 9/11 from a rooftop less than a quarter of a mile away from ground zero down in the Lower East Village. Not too many people in the world saw 9/11 from less than a quarter of a mile away from a rooftop less than a quarter of a mile away. I mean, there's only, so how many of them wrote a poem? I'm going to have to say none. There were no poets on that day. I wasn't even a poet myself. You know what I mean? The words came out of me. I was a lyricist, which is somewhat of a poet, but words purged out of me. I wrote them down watching 9/11, and I've been living up to those words for 25 years. It's unprecedented. Because no one else is, that's it. So that's unprecedented achievement. Why? Because it led to all these other ones I'm going to tell you. So the second one is the unprecedented music of Jazz for Peace, which was launched with the very first concert less than a month later and continues through this day with the ability of Rick, what they're talking about me, to take any song, which I can do. I'm in front of a keyboard now. Take any song and turn it into an adventurous musical masterpiece of free improvisation that has been rated a 540, as we just talked about, in human consciousness by a certified expert witnessing a live performance, and is one of the closest human emotions to world peace itself, which is listed at 600. So that's number 2, the music. What's number 3? Because there's 7. 3. Rick DellaRatta's concert at the United Nations. So go, if you find anybody, let me know, folks. But Rick DellaRatta's concert on September 25th, 2002, less than 1 year later of 9/11. Concert at the United Nations on September 25th, 2002, uniting Israeli, Palestinian, and American jazz musicians, now considered by such luminaries as Barack Obama, Herbie Hancock in music, and countless others. And I have the links to their letters so you can read the letters themselves, what they wrote to me. And countless others is what I really want you to click on it, because like I said, even though it's not 1% of humankind by a long shot, amazing amounts of amazing people have said stuff about this that are in that link, countless others, to be the most significant cultural event of our time. Now imagine you have a chance to experience, be a part of the most significant cultural event of our time, something that is in such an amazing position that it's able to literally say, we want to take world peace funding for world peace to 1% by the end of this celebration. And these multinational corporations are pelting you with stuff that's going to end you up nowhere but in jail if you follow it. And even if you don't follow it and listen to it, it's not going to take you anywhere spiritually. It's not. It's not going to do what music is supposed to do when you listen to it.
Angry. Why do we want to be more angry? We don't.
Right. If you follow it, but like I said, we kind of have been putting up with it. Why? I don't know. All I can do is look at it and say, I don't even want to look at it. So I don't even look at it. But some people look at it and they're like, there must be a reason that this guy, and I look up to him and now I'm in jail.
Well, it validates your anger. So
they could, well, again, you can do that. That's another lower consciousness, thing. You can incite emotions, in people. Yeah, again. So this United Nations concert is an unprecedented achievement. That's on there, and it's one of 7. Listen, I mean, I don't credit myself. I'm just, I'm like Jed Clampett. I was shooting at some food, and up come the ground, come a bubbling crude. I mean, I'm just another person like you are, and that's why I'm saying you could do this yourself. We could all do this. Actually, we all did it. I don't know. World peace funding would be at a whole nother level. A lot of absurd things would be really absurd, and we wouldn't even do them. But this United Nations concert is number 3. Number 4 is bigger. The historic event was then followed by an unprecedented benefit concert series that has helped over 850 of the world's most outstanding causes and is the first of its kind and magnitude in the history of the arts and culture. Now, I'm sitting here saying, like, I can't believe I'm saying this. It's absurd, right? But it's dystopian that we can't get our act together to recognize this, but we are recognizing, amazing absurdity, on a grand scale. So, yes, I mean, we have done over 850 concerts to help the world's most outstanding causes. And when you click on that one, you see hundreds and hundreds of letters from these actual causes in their own words. So for example, I'm looking at it now and I'm clicking on it, and then it takes me to a page where you can just scroll down forever, and you'll see these testimonials. And I'll give you an example, because I was on a podcast and the woman was from Ann Arbor. She never heard of Jazz for Peace, but when she found out about it, she wanted to have me on her podcast, but she had never heard of it before. And so I looked up Ann Arbor to see if we had done something there. And I found this testimonial, and let's listen to what it says, okay? October 2nd, 2012, so 13 years ago, I performed in her town, right? Jazz for Peace benefit concert for Steps for Kids in Ann Arbor, Michigan. September 30th, 2012. Rick DellaRatta is a serious, this is in the words of the executive director of that nonprofit. Rick DellaRatta is a serious and melodic jazz composer, keyboardist, and singer who connected with our audience. Audience members were ecstatic. Some who had come to the concert to support Steps for Kids left jazz enthusiasts. The owner of the very cool venue was thrilled with Rick's performance and is eager to arrange another Jazz for Peace concert. We gained legitimacy and esteem, both from having been chosen by Jazz for Peace as a recipient of this concert and by the excellence of the concert. What a win, 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 win occasion. Diane McCauley, Steps for Kids, Ann Arbor, Michigan. There's over 800 of letters, like all different, all unique on this page. You see what I mean? But we are promoting, I don't know, you know what I mean? An affair that a politician had with an intern. Do you know what I'm saying? Like over every day, that's what we're promoting as a species. That's what we're doing. And so all I'm saying is, if we have to, let's give it a try, a higher level of human consciousness, because, in my opinion, we ourselves can fund world peace at 1% without anybody's permission, and no one's going to punish us for it. As far as I know. I mean, if you are, who the hell are you? We need to find out who you are. You're going to punish us for, we got world peace at 0 here. We want to go to 1. So that's number 3. We're only at number 3, Deanna. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to take up your whole podcast, but now, well, that was number 4. Okay, so that's number 4. So now number 5, unprecedented achievement number 5, the scale of events performed during this series under active terrorist warnings. And this was actually told to me by AI, because AI had done like a thing, like a scan of Jazz for Peace events. It came and said this statement. The scale of events, because someone had looked up, one of our volunteers said, I wonder what AI says about Jazz for Peace. The scale of events performed during this series under active terrorist warnings is considered one of the most courageous artistic statements of the 21st century. Now, I'm not going to say that's not true. And I put in this sentence, you can click and see an event we did in Pakistan, and you can see how we were warned not to go there because of blah, blah, and you can see all that stuff. But I mean, there's Rwanda, there's all kinds of places that we've been to. I wasn't worried, because the trust of the people that we were working with was so genuine. And again, we were embracing, trust, which is a higher level of human consciousness emotion, together. So my point is, when we collectively do things together, we kind of blast out of these low-level emotions, which do create terror and danger. And listen, how are we Jazz for Peace if we only go to the peaceful places?
Right.
That's, you know what I mean? It makes no sense. It would be like embracing hypocrisy, which would be a low level. We want to grow a rose in the desert.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you also mentioned, like, who would want to prevent, funding of peace? Well, Lockheed Martin might want to prevent it, but for example, but the funny thing is, I also wouldn't be afraid, because companies like that know that generally right now, where human consciousness is for the majority, is that they're more addicted to the headlines about the atrocities than they are going to be emotionally motivated by a Jazz for Peace or a music festival or something beautiful. So they're not currently worried. And it's like, what does that say about
They're
us?
not.
What we're choosing to really focus on? We want our anxiety and our depression. We're addicted to it, sure, but like that's the kind of thing that gets you. I think people mix up fear and loathing and rage with aliveness because they're
Right.
not used to desire and play and joy as their source of aliveness, creativity as their source of aliveness. So we on an individual level need to start working on switching that. Like let's get alive with beauty and creativity and music and play and joy, not from watching people suffer.
Listen, I'll tell you how far in the doldrums we are if you really want to know, okay? Right down the street from me is Madison Square Garden. And for many years, I saw this basketball team, the New York Knicks, making ridiculous move after move. Even I was like, what are they doing? And then I saw them in the last couple of years do things like, wait a minute, like you got that's right. That would be good. That would help us. Like, are you guys like shocked that they were on what I consider the right path? I'm like, oh, that coach is really good at defense. That's a great, blah, blah, blah. Well, they got to a point where they ended up advancing very far, doing very well, and they got rid of their coach that they had, who was doing a good job, to get a better coach. Okay? And that coach took them to the championship this year. Okay? So my point is, not that, and that other guy hopefully will get a job with somebody else because, like I said, he's a good coach. So my point is, they're going from good to better, you know? If you look around in the music industry, you will see jazz at 1% of the listening populace, but the people controlling it, nobody is saying, hey, we need a new guy. Know what I mean? No one's saying what they're saying down the street here when we only got to the second round of the playoffs. Hey, we got to, you know what I mean? Here, it's like you can, these people are, year in and year out, these people, nobody says anything. Like if that was sports, you know what I'm saying? The 13th or 14th game of the season, people would be like, what's going on with our team? The manager would be like, what's going on with your team? And if you look at sports, they're rolling in money. They're not, artists aren't like starving to death. The artists, the basketball players aren't starving. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you don't see a NBA basketball player slicing his ear off.
Mm-mm.
Like Vincent van Gogh. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not doing that. I mean, one of the guys that I hadn't even really heard of, he tipped in a ball in the playoffs that I thought was phenomenal. I'm like, who is this guy? You know how much he was making? I never heard of him. He was making $42 million that year. And I hadn't even heard of him, and I know basketball. He was making $42 million. His contract was a $200 million contract. So that's what this behavior has done to music. It has reversed, just totally reversed the paradigm. And if you remove that, it would go the other way. Because if you go back to the 1920s, I used to play in a band called the Artie Shaw Orchestra that was famous in the 1930s. And if you ever look that band up, one of the highest paid Americans at that time was Artie Shaw, the big band leader. And he was being paid way more than the sports figures.
Mm.
But the idea of, coercing him into helping people get us more prisoners was not on the table during that time. You see what I mean? Along with a lot of other ridiculous ideas that are holding us down. But one of them, like I said, is, and like your friend told you, getting these artists known during their lifetime. So now we're already up to number 5 with the active terrorist warnings. Number 6, the combined, and all these have links again, so you can check them because, like I said, they sound incredulous. Here's another one: the combined total of world leaders that have been united through this benefit concert series have now surpassed the combined total from the many other well-known one-off events, such as Woodstock, Live Aid, Farm Aid, and more that inspired the series. So in other words, we're a giant series. We've been a giant series. I mean, we played tons of little concerts, big concerts. We're not done, but these are just one-off events. Farm Aid was a one-off event. You know what I mean? But like I'm saying, what this says, if you look at our 25 years of totality, yes, we have brought more. We've had 25 years to do it. They only had one concert, but nevertheless, that is an unprecedented achievement. I mean, I would like somebody else to say I've done that. That'd be great. I'd be like, congratulations. It's just that nobody else has, so it's on this list. Number 7 is new. This is number 7. This is our 7th unprecedented achievement that we are asking everyone, that includes you, Rihanna, to participate in. Everyone. Why? Because we know that if you have the will, we are offering options that give you the way. So, number 7, new, an amazing platform to take funding for world peace from 0 to 1% by the end of our year-long 25th anniversary celebration. The ability now, for the first time ever, for the entire world, because, the world can participate in something together. We didn't used to be able to. It was impossible for us to communicate. But, I have a guy who doesn't even speak English coming on my podcast in a couple weeks using an AI translation service to be able to voice translation So my point is, we can all do this if we want to. For the entire world to be able to play a role in unprecedented funding for world peace, including both podcast hosts and audience members, as well as outstanding organizations and concert attendees. Due to the fact that Jazz for Peace has found a way for anyone who has the will to change the world for the better, with 6 options to choose from, and 5 of them being completely free, all of them playing a small role at this march from 0 to 1%. Even though it's free, is what I'm telling you. For example, one of those 6 ways, if you go to the page, and we put the link there. So the link is jazzforpeace.org/easy ways, because that's what they are, easy ways that you can participate. jazzforpeace.org/easy ways.pdf. You go to there and you pick one. And like I said, 5 of them are free. There's 6, if somebody, we're not going to exclude somebody who says, look, Rick, I have a house, I have a I have a retirement, I have a 501k, I have this, can I make it? Yes, you can. That's number 6. But we have 5 that are free for the person who says, oh, only billionaires can do, I can't, I've got to wait for Elon Musk is going to save me. You know what I mean? No. You are going to save yourself right now. I'm choosing one of those 5 free ways if you have the will. And they're pretty easy. For example, one of them is to take a link that we have. It's called Pay It Forward. So again, all these are jazzforpeace.org/ then payitforward.pdf. It's a link that shows how an organization, an outstanding cause, can get funding from Jazz for Peace. Most outstanding causes are not even legitimate to begin with. A lot of them are just people that, they just want you to not to know that they're doing this for a write-off on their taxes. Mm-hmm. That's what they want. That's the outstanding cause, their write-off. But like I said, there are thousands of people with dreams and goals because they're rich on the inside. So that's why those people, there will always be outstanding causes, because there are people that want to get rich. Maybe they can't get rich in the fake monetary world. They want to be rich on the inside. Sometimes you find people that are rich on the fake world and they're like, whoa, I don't feel rich at all. They're also legitimate. They want to do something that makes their soul and their spirit. You can give that link to one of them and say, hey, can you read this? There's a tutorial video at the top, 3-minute read, tutorial video at the top. Do you have any questions? Are you interested in this? Yes. Let me put you in touch with Jazz for Peace so they can take you the rest of the way. Now, some of those events have raised in the hundreds of thousands of funds, and funds is only one of 7 things that we raise. Because again, We are gaslighted into thinking that you can throw money at a problem and fix it. You can't. No one's ever fixed any problem throwing money at it. It's never fixed a problem. Even those people that win the lottery, have you do a study on them? Are you aware of that? People have
I see it go badly a lot.
train wrecks of the highest order are lottery winners. I know one personally. Guess where he is? Dead.
Oh,
Dead. Yeah, dead. Killed by that lottery money.
mm,
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you that it's a horror story, but he won the lottery. I know the guy. So my point is, you can't throw money at a problem and fix it. You cannot do that. I don't know why everybody thinks it, but again, we are gaslighting. I think is also put that on your. I don't know what that's way down there, right?
yes.
That's not a higher level of gaslighting. We are gaslit to the max. So basically, we provide 7 things. Okay, it's called an empowerment tree. One of the things is money, but another one is, let's say, local sponsors. With 5 local sponsors on the flyer, just those 5, that's not all that we're trying for, but let's say you have 5. Well, our studies have found that they will sponsor you again year after year after year because you now have you have a camaraderie with those sponsors. They will, you know what I mean? They'll remain with you. New and prestigious supporters, publicity and awareness, all of these things. There's 7 of them on an empowerment tree. If you go to jazzrepeats.org, the first thing you see is a tree. If you click on it, you can actually click on each branch. So my point is that's one of the free things that anybody can do. There are 7. There are 7. And like I said, 5, wait a minute, are there 6?
6.
There are 6, and there are 7 unprecedented achievements, but there are 6 choices to help us get from 0 to 1. And like I said, only the last one is to make a donation. The other 5, so there's no way. And that's our 7th. That's what we are hoping will be our 7th unprecedented achievement. It's underway now. And that's on that page. If you go to it, and like I said, someone could take that page and just show it to a person in your community. I forgot where you're from, Austin?
I'm in India. It's California.
Indios, we went through that. Yeah, another person was from Austin. We talked about that last time, Indios. But like I said, somebody in Indios. I mean, I told you last time, if I can play in India, I can play in Indios.
Yeah.
There are people in India. There are people in India that have heard me play during my lifetime, and we're on track now for people in Indios to never hear me during my lifetime. This is it necessary? I don't think it's absolutely necessary. It's the whole thing's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Are you up for playing something for us? Because we're coming up on time, and I'd love to end on that.
Yes. Okay. So, I wasn't sure what to play because I've been doing so many different things, but I did do something for you last time that was a tribute to a great person who passed away named Sonny Rollins, who had stood for peace in a big way during his lifetime. And the song is very interesting because it could be related to love in general. It could also be related to an interracial marriage or a marriage that's not sanctioned by, how that is with parents. They're like, I don't want you going out with that one, he's got no future, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting thing. It's called Two Different Worlds. So I guess I'll just try that one again and we'll see what happens. Two different worlds. We live in 2 different worlds. For we've been told that a love like ours could never be. So far apart. They say we're so far apart, and that we haven't the right to change our destiny. When will they learn that a heart doesn't draw the line? Nothing matters if I am yours and you are mine. Two different worlds. We live in two different worlds, but we then show them as we talk together in the sun. That are two different worlds are one. When will they learn that a heart doesn't draw the line? Nothing matters if I am yours and you are mine. Two different worlds. We live in two different worlds, but we will show them as we walk together in the sun. That are two different worlds are one.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. That's so cool. I don't know if I've actually heard that song before.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, again, this is where serendipity comes into play, and I think serendipity and the universe again is a higher level of human consciousness because that story. This comes from a. Have you heard? Or so you're a singer. You've heard of Billie Holiday, right?
Yes.
So Billie Holiday actually was the greatest singer in the R.D. Shaw Orchestra, of which I was told a couple times I was their greatest piano player. But he might have been saying that to butter me up or whatever. But she was the greatest singer. I was told I was the greatest piano player of that band. We were in the band at way two different times, two different worlds, right? She was in the 1940s, and actually she was somewhat destroyed. She toured with that band, but they went through the discrimination, the areas of discrimination. And R.D. Shaw in the interview said it actually destroyed Billie Holiday, the discrimination, all the stuff which she experienced through that. Anyway, that wasn't the only thing that took her down. I mean, these people are against a lot. So, but the thing is, Billie Holiday had a favorite saxophone player. And that favorite saxophone player's son called me up on the phone a few weeks ago. He became a jazz guitar player. So Billie Holiday's favorite saxophonist was a guy named Al Cohn. He had a son. That son became a jazz guitar player. That guitar player called me up on the phone because he's alive in my era. And he says, Rick, I just hear you singing this song, Two Different Worlds. Have you ever heard of it? I said, well, geez, I don't know. He said, Sonny Rollins recorded it. I said, wow, Sonny Rollins, really? Let me check it out. Because I was like, I again, in that unprecedented link, it states how I'll take any song and turn it into jazz, which I will. I'll take, all the leaves are brown, all the leaves are brown. You know what I mean? I'll take a piano bar song and turn it into jazz if you want, which I do. But this is already in the jazz idiom because it's recorded by Sonny Rollins, who was, one of our tenor saxophone giants. And I looked it up, and he says, I hear you like doing something with. So I took the song and I did the little iPhone thing, the record. And I just, let me do it for him and see what he said. And I sent it over to him. I just did that's what I want. That's exactly what I was thinking, what you're doing. I said, really? I said, okay, well, you know what? I'll do it. I mean, it's coming from a decent source. It's fair enough. I take requests. So he requested that song 3 days after I played him, after I learned a little bit of it and sent it to him. 3 days later, Sonny Rollins died.
Oh, wow.
Yes. That's what I'm trying to tell you about. You see how things happen?
Yeah.
Sonny Rollins dies, and I'm sitting here with a tribute to him because this person had called me up to learn that song, having no idea.
Oh, my God. That's amazing.
And what's amazing is this is a special tribute to him because a lot of people don't know Sonny Rollins, the person. And if they do their due diligence, they'll see that he was very much anti-violence, very much interested in peace, and the song's lyrics are about overcoming the oppression of, you two will never make it kind of deal. You see what I mean? So it all comes full circle that way. And so you now have a tribute to Sonny Rollins for your podcast, whether yeah.
Wow.
I mean, hopefully you're a singer, so you'll probably run into some people who know who Sonny Rollins is, and you can tell them, hey, this guy did a tribute to him on my podcast.
Wow, that's so cool. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'll put the links to follow you in the show notes. Do you want to leave the audience with any last thing or another way to find you?
Well, another way to find me is an interesting way. If you can spell my name, Rick DellaRatta, and you will be able to spell it because it'll be spelled on the podcast, and you put famous quote. If you do that and put famous quote, you'll see, again, these things that happen. Because I try to do stuff, you try to do stuff, and man, can you end up in trouble trying to do something. I try, but I have been trying, But this thing I never tried for. Again, this tribute to Sonny Rollins, I didn't try for. It came to me that way. But this famous quote, if you put Rick DellaRatta famous quote, you'll see something that was lifted that I said that basically points to this idea of us giving a higher level of human consciousness a try. It's something that these famous quotes website found in a interview, and it just says if we fill our souls up with creativity, artistry, humanity, our greatest qualities, which is what a higher form of all those emotions, we will have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. And it's a famous quote now. It's on hundreds of, dozens of different languages, et cetera. So you can, if you want to find out in a different way than just jazzforpeace.org, you can do Rick DellaRatta famous quote. And like I said, this page that I told you about Salieri, that would be jazzforpeace.org/Salieri page.pdf. And that's a page where you can, believe me, you can break the cycle. You can actually be a part of breaking a horrific cycle that's gone hundreds of years by taking that Salieri page link and just giving it to some club in your area and saying, look, this guy's still alive. He's got 7 unprecedented achievements. He's not dead. Want to try it? Want to give it a shot? Take a flyer, have this guy come and so we can hear him during his lifetime? See what he says. And that's a free way that you can be a part of it. Because again, that will promote this idea of getting artists heard during their lifetime. It'll promote jazz, people will find out about Jazz for Peace, our benefit concerts, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe an outstanding cause will find out about us through that performance.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time, Rick, and doing a re-record too. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yes, and like I said, I'll stay on to let if it has to upload, whatever it does, So hopefully we'll get it this time.
All right. Happy to have you here and have a great afternoon.
Oh, my pleasure. Likewise.